All right, we're here. We're back. We've got Forrest, who is a member of the Grand Order of the British Empire. Not really, right? And you got Heff here, Mrs. T's Heiferogies. We're back with you, folks. We've got some good stuff. Lessons learned from the top cyber stories. And, of course, you always hit the smash the like button if you like us. If you don't like us, we understand, too. But please comment and share. We're going to have Forrest's soapboxes, man. People love this stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I always love the random title that you attribute to me at the beginning. That's fun.
I appreciate you, Forrest. But thank you for coming out, man. It's always good having you here. We do have a threat briefing email that you can subscribe to, and check this out. It's got tons of the latest breaches, the latest vulns, latest risks, and of course, PCI news, GDPR news, all that stuff. You can subscribe. And we are from SecurityMetrics. We try to help small to large size businesses with their cybersecurity, providing affordable, high quality, simple to use technology and data security and compliance tools. So with that in mind, Forrest, our top stories, this is a good episode.
Yeah.
The latest phishing lures. Man, the Squid Game lures, Forrest. I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, a lot of scams going on.
My gosh. Is your TV spying on you? We'll talk about that. And we share the data that big tech collects. You might be shocked about how much data collection is being done on you. And of course, the latest on the Trojan source code attack, which is pretty fascinating stuff.
Indeed.
All that and more here on the SecurityMetrics News. All right, check it out, like the Beastie Boys would sing about. We got to talk about the latest phishing lures, Forrest, and some of these are doozies.
Yeah,
man.
indeed.
I think these phishing lures are good to share, not just with coworkers, but also with family, friends. A lot of teenagers get picked up on these phishing lures all the time. So that's some interesting stuff. So let's talk about this first. Hey, Forrest, have you ever sold a car on like Craigslist or OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace? Or
not a car, but I've other things. So definitely have had some experience in the realm.
Well, people are getting taken by these phishing lures with regards to cars. And we'll put up a screenshot here for you to take a look at. But check this out. What the scammer is doing is they are texting from a fake number. And a lot of these scammers are using bots, which I didn't know that they were doing that on Craigslist, but they are pretty heavily.
Yeah. Get a lot of these places that are just scraping phone numbers, contact info, and just copy pasting stuff directly from the ad. Yeah. It's pretty funny when you see it happening, because it's just direct word for word copy of what you said. Yeah.
So what happens then is they send you this text message, or they might send it to you through email, and you'll see on the example here is your 97 Jaguar. Is that how you pronounce it, Jaguar? Jaguar or Jaguar? I always pronounce it Jaguar. My wife corrects me on that all the time. But the scammer says, I saw your car online. It looks great, but you know what I need? I need a car history report. Hey, could you get one for me? And of course you respond back to it and they send you this link. But I want you to get the car history report from this exact link. And it's nothing to do with Carfax. But what they'll do is they'll ask you to pay $25 or $30 to get this Carfax report, and then they'll never respond back to you. So that's one phishing lure that you need to be aware of right now. Very, very nasty stuff in my opinion.
Yeah, pretty scummy for sure.
Yeah. Here's another one that's going out there right now is the Squid Game stuff. I have never seen this show. Have you seen it?
It's pretty brutal. Pretty brutal.
This Squid Game malware, a lot of scams. And the hackers do this all the time, where they take a popular TV show, and then they just play on it with people. And really, what's going on right now is this Squid Game scams, and they're tied back to this Korean TV show, right?
Yep. South Korean, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that scammers are using a television show that is essentially critique of all the flaws of capitalism to then turn around and scam people. There's a certain man. Oh man, yeah, and it's not just they're doing it with apps,
Squid Game related apps
in app stores. The one I saw that was the big one was cryptocurrency. Somebody launched a Squid Game themed cryptocurrency that took for the tune of, I think it was like $3.3 million. And then they just, took the money and ran. Complete rug pull.
I would caution everyone in the audience. It's really this Squid Game stuff. I know a lot of teenagers are the ones that are getting scammed on this. So it's tied back to applications, games, books. I've even now seen where they're doing lures that are tied to your wallpaper. Okay, which is fascinating stuff. So again, be aware of it. Make sure your friends and family at least know about these Squid Game themed malware scams that are going on out there. Another lure that you need to be aware of, and I thought this was fascinating. The Checkpoint folks put out a report and they said, hey, we have the most imitated brands. And is there any shock for us that the most imitated brand is Microsoft?
Not at all. Not at all. You see them topping the phishing targeting year over year. It always happens.
And it's not just Microsoft coming in at number 1 in this report, but it's Amazon at number 2, DHL, Best Buy, Google, WhatsApp, Netflix, LinkedIn is number 8, number 9 is PayPal, and number 10 is Facebook. So what is the lesson learned here, Forrest, with these most imitated brands for phishing?
For me, it's if it's an unprompted interaction of any kind, that should automatically raise your alarm bells. Unless you're actively doing something with one of these services, and all of a sudden get this email saying, "Hey, you need to take action doing XYZ." Immediately be suspicious. Always check the headers if anything seems off. If something is a call to action, don't use the links in the email. Go to their website directly, or if you have a bookmark, bookmarks are great for avoiding phishing links. Just the general hygiene with regards to that email that's coming in.
I think it's great for if you're out there in your workplace and you need to make sure your folks know about this. Technology is the most commonly imitated brand, but now what we're seeing is more and more social media networks being used for phishing attempts. So in your environment, make sure your folks are aware that it's not just Microsoft and Amazon and the DHL and the post office phishing emails, but now you're going to start to see a lot more WhatsApp, LinkedIn, PayPal, Facebook. Forrest, let's put up a screenshot right here of the latest phishing lure that's hitting people with Google. If you have a Google account, you gotta see this. Look how real this sucker looks, Forrest. I was shocked at how. I mean, this looks exactly like a login page for Google.
Yeah, it's undistinguishable. Just looking at it visually. I mean, it's a pixel for pixel perfect reproduction of it.
But there is ways to tell though that it is not legit. And one thing that you can do is you can look at the copyright date, and you see in our example right here, it says 2020 Google LLC, and the year is 2021. If you hover, like Forrest mentioned, if you hover above the link, you see Google. It says no reply at accounts.google.com. So obviously that's fake. And if you hover over the link itself, it's this weird router.ac. So be aware of this, folks. And then when you actually do click on it, the fraudulent page itself is, again, difficult. So difficult to see that it's a fraudulent page unless you hover over the link.
Yeah, even then, sometimes, depending on how it's been coded up, the link preview could show something different from what it actually ends up being when you click it. One thing that I've found is you can generally, if you right-click and copy the link, and then you'll compare it to what is popped up, and it's actually different contents. You see this in links from Google directly, where they'll have various forwarding where they're tracking what clicks you've made and things like that. It's any of the URL shorteners, use like a URL expander or something, or just copy and paste into a text file so you can see and read it out before you decide whether or not you want to follow a link.
Great advice for us. And one more example up here on the screen is LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is a huge brand. A lot of people are getting hit with these phishing emails. Here's the example. When you hover over the reply to email, you see it says LinkedIn@connect.com. And you click on the link, or you hover over the link, you see it's coversforlife.com. So nasty, nasty stuff, folks. One more phishing link to share with you too. This is a brand new one that's out there. It's hitting. It's actually showing as coming from a Kaspersky email address. Kaspersky, I'm having difficulty saying it. Pretty popular cybersecurity firm out there.
Yep.
And what the bad guys are doing is they're combining two different phishing kits together. And what you'll find is the phishing email is really, it's trying to steal Office 365 credentials.
Yeah, what I thought was really interesting about this one was it is actually using a legitimate Amazon simple email services account. Apparently, they compromised the token that was being used for that through a contractor. So this actually was using legitimate Kaspersky infrastructure for email.
Wow, some nasty stuff. I didn't know that. I didn't hear that part of the story.
It's pretty difficult to distinguish.
You can see an example of it up here on the screen. It says new fax received, and that's what it typically would look like. So again, let your coworkers know if you see an email from Microsoft trying to steal your credentials, it'll say new fax received. That's the most common look for it coming out there. All right. Now, another thing that's going on right now is Black Friday's coming up for us. You going to go shopping?
Oh, boy. Buy Nothing Day.
Buy Nothing Day. Yes. I'm a huge fan of that. Man, I learned about that in college, man. Buy Nothing Day, and it served us well. So the big thing about this is I know a lot of teenagers, Forrest, they love these what do they call these things? Gift card generators?
Oh yeah. It reminds me of the old video game key gens of the heydays of high school. I honestly wonder how many various pieces of malware were running on my friends' computers as a result of these things.
Back then, you didn't really need to be too concerned about it, but nowadays, I mean, you put one of these Amazon gift card generators, and it's loading malware. And majority of these gift card generators, in fact, all of them don't work.
Yeah.
So that's the first takeaway here. The second thing is what it's looking for, and it's trying to steal crypto wallets. So, and it's really looking for that 54 character string. It's looking for it in your clipboard or your notepad. And from there, the bad guy will pivot. So again, please tell your teenagers, especially, gift card generators don't work.
Yep. There's no such thing as free money, unfortunately.
Forrest, we got to get into our gaslighting segment. I put it right up front here because I think there's some really good stories, man. The one story that just blew my mind, blew my mind. Lincoln, California residents, they were hit with a power surge. Can you imagine being hit with a power surge and all of your appliances go offline, like completely broken, every motherboard fried, folks? We're talking microwave, dishwasher, your televisions, your oven. And now imagine it happening to a large percentage of people in one town.
That's
brutal.
Gosh,
Forrest, I would lose my brain.
That is real brutal. I hope insurance covers it. But yeah, you never know with that kind of thing.
So we thought we'd take a moment to just say, hey, they make actually surge protectors for your entire home. And I know this topic is not really cybersecurity related, but it is more physical security related, in my opinion.
I mean, you get into the triad, one of the tenets of security is availability.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's not available for use, it's not secure. So I would say that this does fall under that purview.
Well, that's good then. I feel more confident that we're talking about this. Forrest, a lot of people put surge protectors on everything in their home. I know I do. But, the bigger appliances, it could be a little bit of a challenge. So you see up on the screen here 2 examples of whole home surge protectors. We're not here to endorse any brand, but we just want to make sure you know that if you do decide to go down this path, hire an electrician to do it. Don't try to do this yourself. You can get seriously hurt, like death.
Yeah, most definitely. And you don't necessarily need to go with one of the whole home things. If a good example is one of my neighbors a couple of weeks ago, there was a power surge and it took out her refrigerator. So I helped her move that out. But she ended up getting just a little single heavy appliance surge protector that just it sits in between the two. And I mean, heck, for like $8, it's like, okay, yeah, that if I'm putting this in front of a $1,200 appliance, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, Forrest did mention the insurance part of it. For what a lot of these people are doing in Lincoln, California, is they are filing claims with the PG&E, and PG&E is saying, well, we're only going to give you fair market value at its current rate. So it's not like you're going to get, if your fridge was $3,000, they're not giving you $3,000 to replace it. They're going to give you fair market value. What's tragic for us is this could have been prevented for a lot of these folks. And not only could have been prevented for a relatively low amount of money, but it happens right before Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. With the holidays coming up, that's got to be a real punch to the gut. So.
So another thing that I wanted to talk about is Forrest, is your TV spying on you? You ever wondered about this?
Oh yeah, it's your telescreen. Come on. Yeah, Big Brother's there.
They would never be spying on me. But, we were at SaintCon, the conference SaintCon, and I attended a presentation about Samba television, and I never dawned on me to talk about this with our audience. Samba TV is on Forrest, almost every television brand out there. You can't escape it.
Yeah. The doing the analytics on what you're watching, I absolutely hate the idea of it.
But now check this out. We put up a graphic on the screen right now. Samba television, there's a couple things you can do to turn off this interactive experience. Samba is actually used to track what you view. You can reset your advertiser ID. You can do that in your TV settings. You can also limit the ad tracking. Normally that's a feature that you can turn on and off. A feature. It's not really a feature, right? That's a spyware. And then you can also turn off Samba TV itself. Now, what's a challenge is trying to tell you how to do this on every different TV brand. I know, for example, on the TCLs, they don't even call it Samba TV. They just call it Interactive TV Experience. Yep. Yeah, you can turn that off on there. On the Sony brands, for example, you can actually see, it'll say Samba TV, turn it off, and you can go into settings and do that. So.
Yeah. If you're feeling adventurous, you could probably get something like a Raspberry Pi and set up something like Pi-hole, where you're doing DNS-wide ad blocking and blocking analytics and trackers. It's a little bit more involved, but it's very. If you're somewhat technically inclined, you could probably do it in a weekend.
But definitely be aware of this. TV spying on you, Samba TV. Please, please, please turn it off if you care about that. And then, Forrest, this is the one that I knew you're going to get fired up about, man. How much does these big tech companies collect? And what I always found it challenging, Forrest, is trying to figure out, well, how much do they collect? And nobody's ever really explained it in a way that makes it simple to follow. And finally, somebody did, and we'll include that link here, but let's talk about it. Yeah. How much are they collecting for us?
An obscene amount of information. And until you see it broken down line by line, you don't really realize, wow, that is an amazing amount of information about me as a person.
Yeah, take a look on the screen here, folks. All the amount of personal collection. This is just from Google, how much they're collecting. And Google's obviously the worst offender. What can you do about it is always the question for us. We'll check out the next screen here as we talk about this here. Not just personal information, but also unique identifiers. Forrest, there's not much you could do about it if you're in the Google ecosystem.
Yeah. There's alternatives. Some will say, oh, just go Apple. I'm more of a fan of not trusting any corporation, and instead I'd rather depend on the open source ecosystem, something that is openly verifiable. So in that case, there's different flavors of Android that you can use that have been de-Googled, if you will, so that you don't necessarily need to completely remove yourself from that ecosystem. Or you could go really hardcore and just go for an old flip phone.
They do sell the Nokia 6610s, by the way.
Yeah, indestructible.
They just brought them back. They brought them back on Amazon. So check this out. We also put up more screens here. Yeah, a lot of people knew that Google is tracking your search terms, your video watches, your views, your interactions. But the amount of activity that's collected, you can see here on the screen just how much they're actually collecting. It's absolutely mind-boggling for us. But it's not just Google that's classified as the bad guy. It's all these other brands too.
Yeah.
And this website, these folks actually went through and presented very cleanly and nicely to understand how much data Facebook collects on you, Amazon, Apple, Twitter, Google, all the big dogs out there.
Yep, GAFAM, the Microsoft, the big techs of the world.
Right. So again, it's something to be aware of. We'll include the link in the show notes. Leave a comment, though. We'd love to hear from you what you think about all this data collection and what are some of your strategies that you use besides not using the internet at all to stop this data collection. We'd love to hear from you, okay? All right, let's talk about the vulnerabilities, the risk force. There were tons of vulnerabilities the last 2 weeks in the news. And we could probably sit here all day and talk about the Apple. There were 22 vulns that were patched for Apple, a lot of critical vulns for Google products and Android. But there were some of them for us that really caught my attention. And I have to talk about the WinRAR remote code execution.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a trip in the Wayback Machine.
We're taking you back to the 1990s where the music was fresh and the clothes were just so bright.
We got WinRAR, we got keygens. Man, I'm right back in high school, man.
So WinRAR actually had a remote code execution vulnerability. This RCE impacts the trial version, and this is the thing, Forrest. With WinRAR, when somebody accidentally buys WinRAR, I imagine like everyone at their corporate headquarters is having a party. Like somebody got rid of the trial version and bought our software. This stuff is pretty nasty. And again, most people, Forrest, they leave the trial version on their computer and they totally forget about it.
Yeah. And I've also heard that it was a deliberate strategy was, getting the home user base using this software and then slowly getting into the business marketplace that way.
Oh, okay.
Kind of that's the same thing that Adobe did with, everybody was pirating, all of the Photoshop and the others, to get that to be the standard. And then everybody starts using that in the office. So
the lesson learned from this stuff is if you have WinRAR in your computer's network, if somebody has it installed, you got to be aware of these third-party software risks. If you don't need it anymore, the key takeaway is to uninstall it. If you've got it installed, you need to update it and get the right version. And if you didn't go looking for it, don't install it, basically.
Yep.
So WinRAR back in the news. Discord was also in the news about a week or so ago, where the threat actors were really using Discord, which is very popular as a chat platform, and they were pushing out malware. But this is really unique, Forrest, in the amount of malware that's being pushed out. There's so many different vectors that the bad guys are using to push out this malware.
Yeah, they're using it to directly transfer files. It's essentially just a fancier IRC channel. They're using it for all the command and control. They hop into one of these malware generated channels, and they have different rooms where they can have different campaigns that they're coordinating, and it's pretty impressive. They're all doing it through a Python library that just directly interfaces with Discord's API. So
yeah, and that API abuse is critical. The Discord bots, they're using Discord bots to push out malware. The emphasis with Discord has always been on functionality and not on security. So if you have this in your environment and people are using Discord, it's one of those things where you need to have conversations with your staff. Great power comes great responsibility. And boy, if your team's not aware of how much malware is being pushed out through Discord and the ways that it's being pushed out, your team's in serious trouble.
Yeah, it's another vector. It's also opens up opportunities for social engineering, for any kind of manipulation in that sense, where you can then just send them an executable directly.
Sad times. Discourse was also in the news. Discourse is this open source discussion platform, very popular out there.
Yeah.
It's got a remote code execution vulnerability. So be aware of that. It's got to get patched, folks. If you have Discourse in your environment, definitely get out there and patch it.
Yeah. One thing to note was the software as a service version was all patched, and in my opinion, that's a perfectly valid approach. Like if that's another piece of infrastructure that you just can't devote the time to maintain, paying somebody else to do it is totally valid.
Yeah, it's a good move. There are a lot of vulnerabilities out there. We mentioned the Google stuff. We mentioned the Apple. I believe it was, help me out, I believe it was Adobe, folks. If you have Adobe, any of the Adobe products, I think there were 14 different products that were patched in the past week. 92 vulnerabilities were patched just in the past week alone. That's a lot across 14 different platforms. So you need to get Adobe patched as well. But the one thing that we've got to talk about, Forrest, and this was big, man.
Oh, yeah.
This was huge. This was all over Krebs on security site and a bunch of sites.
Oh, yeah.
Trojan source attack.
Yep.
Have you looked into this at all? I mean, I'm sure the audience wants to hear about it.
Yeah, it's pretty novel. So what the Trojan source attack is essentially hiding malware in using Unicode characters for bidirectional writing, left to right and right to left. They have the ability to hide code using those kind of characters that doesn't get rendered by certain types of editors, but it still gets compiled.
Yeah.
So even though you can't see it when you're looking at your source code, it's still going to have an effect when you go to compile and run it.
Can you speak English for us? Can you do that? Like, give me the beauty pageant answer.
So
yes, I'm speaking Forrest right now. All they're doing is hiding malicious code in the comments, and then when they go to compile the code, the malicious code gets activated from the comments.
Yeah.
So.
We've seen similar kind of behavior with like domain names, where you have things what's called like a homoglyph attack, where it's a different character but it looks the same. So it's like, oh, this is an O, but it's some weird Unicode character that isn't actually an O. So somebody buys that domain with the weird character and then sends out a link, and you can't tell the difference. It looks exactly the same.
This is some nasty stuff, folks. This Trojan code attack, and it was discovered by these University of Cambridge researchers. It affects, like every platform out there: C, C++, C#, Java, Rust, Go, Python, JavaScript. Everything, Forrest, is impacted by this.
Yep, yeah. A lot of it is dependent on what editor you're using when you're writing code, whether it supports Unicode characters or not, and rendering those properly. It also depends on like where you're keeping your source code. Is it in GitHub, GitLab? Is it Bitbucket? What are you using to store that? Thankfully, like they did a really excellent job of coordinating the response, and all the major platforms have actually patched this now. So it'll actually display a warning, hey, this code contains these weird characters that may affect how it compiles. So awesome job on that front. I was impressed with that.
They patched it.
Oh, yeah.
That's really awesome to hear. This is a fascinating story, and this is probably one of the top 10 stories of 2021, being able to hear about this and be able to fix it and patch it. So good stuff, man. Let's move on here. This is another thing that we really wanted to share. I know we shared it with our team here, but Google just banned about 150 dangerous Android apps. We actually tweeted about this last week, and we want to make sure you're aware of it. We'll include a link to the list of 150 dangerous apps. You got to get them off your phone, is the bottom line. Some of these apps, Forrest, are just, they blow my mind, man. Like the truck driving simulator app. Like, oh, I'm sure I have that on my phone, right? Or the taxi cab driver simulator.
Yeah.
Some of the names on these apps too, they're pretty like Rubik's Cube, real-time solver, how to solve a Rubik's Cube puzzle. I'm sure you're going to want to delete that app, okay?
Yeah. Every now and again, I like to just periodically go through and look at what applications I have on my phone, and it's like, wait, when was the last time I used this? Why did I install it? Do I still need it? A lot of the time it's like, oh, I chose this dialer over this one because this one supports dark mode. Well, dark mode. I can get rid of that and just use the stock one.
Gosh. All right, time to talk about the most prominent data breaches in the news from the Office of Inadequate Security. We've got the biggest breaches. There were a lot of breaches, Forrest. And again, always trying to pick like the top ones to talk about are really difficult. I like to pick the stories that you don't typically hear about from breaches. Yeah. So this FERPA breach, FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And what happened was at Ohio State University, they have a new acting interim director, and he introduced himself via email. He copied 399 student names and their email information, including their disability status, and he left it in the to line on the email instead of putting it like in the blind carbon copy line, BCC line.
Yeah, CC versus BCC strikes again. Yeah.
And so some of the people that got the email, they're like, hey, man, do you know what you just did? You exposed all my information. Like, can you believe that?
Yeah, it feels bad because it's like, mistakes happen. Yeah. Like I've definitely messed up a CC versus a BCC. Like I can't fault the guy for it. Like,
this is fine inducing though. Kind of like, hey, you need to know the rules for your industry. And this goes out to everyone out there because we're all guilty of it, like you said.
Yeah. The big thing with this is because it was such a mass mailing, like those types of mailings should go through proper channels or only have limited accounts that are allowed to do these types of mass mailings. Yeah. That way you have somebody that is specifically trained on doing these kind of campaigns, and they know what to look out for.
Big time. So again, a FERPA breach. We don't usually see this too often in the news. So another thing that happened was tell me about the Toronto transportation system. Forrest, can you do that for me? That's my best Canadian impression.
I can't do a Canadian impression. They would probably have some very stern words for me. That's about as mean as they get.
Well, Toronto Public Transit System, they got hit with ransomware. We don't have an attribution yet on who the ransomware gang it's attributed to, who's taking credit for it. But apparently this IT staffer this past week, they detected a bunch of unusual network activity. Why is this so important, though, Forrest, that we talk about this? Public transport.
For me, it's the human element of the story. Like, this is impacting a lot of critical services. Like, this was doing this shut down their transit coordination for people with disabilities.
Oh yeah.
It hurts people that depend on public transit for their daily commute, for to make a living. It's
their internal email server was hit with it.
Yep.
All their video-based driver systems. Imagine if you have video cameras on all these vehicles and the threat actor is able to take control of that. I even heard, Forrest, that real-time information on all vehicles in the city that were known now to the ransomware gang. So big nasty stuff, man.
Yeah.
All right. So, and apparently stuff is coming back online. So, but again, no attribution. Forrest, this is another story that caught my eye here as we start to wrap up the data breaches. I did not know that Signet Jewelers owns Kay, they own Jared, and they own Zales. Did you know that?
It's a monolith. Yeah,
it is a monolith, man. But what's fascinating is both Kay Jewelers and Jared websites, they were hit in 2018 with this. Imagine, folks, you log into one of these jeweler websites and you change just one or two numbers in the order, and it drops you into somebody else's shopping cart. And you're able to see everything they bought, their billing address, their shipping, their credit card information, delivery dates, tracking, all that stuff. That's dangerous territory.
Yeah, it's pretty poor authentication controls in that sense, where you shouldn't just be able to go through and enumerate every order that's ever been placed just by incrementing.
And this happened not just once, Forrest, to Kay and Jared websites, but now it happened to Zales. And the funny thing is, it's not even funny, man. It's sad. This is not the first time it's happened, and they're blowing it under the rug like it doesn't matter. Like Forrest, these things, there's hardly any ever real consequences for organizations that fail to take this due care, this due diligence with events like this.
Yeah. It's a gross breach of trust, especially in an organization that is of this size and scale.
Yeah, and this story came from Krebs on Security, where a reader responded and said, hey, you're not going to believe what just happened to me on the Zales website. And then you start to connect the dots. You go, this stuff is happening a lot, and it's just getting pushed under the rug.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to our top stories here when we wrap this sucker up. Guys, Forrest, I was absolutely fascinated by this back in 2017. This guy created a website called He Streams, and he was able to share access to people's NLB, NBA, NFL, NHL accounts. If you wanted to watch live streams of the games, this guy made it happen starting in 2017, and they finally caught him, and they charged him with hacking all these users' accounts to stream the games.
Man, yeah, that's it's pretty impressive. I will say, as a side gig enterprise, that's pretty impressive.
What I thought was fascinating is how they caught the guy. And the reason why we're talking about this story is how they actually got this guy. So about a year or so ago, this guy attempted to extort the MLB as a bug bounty researcher. And he said, hey, I want $150,000 and I'll disclose a bunch of breaches, a bunch of security flaws to you. So the FBI actually tracked him. Do you know how they tracked him, Forrest?
I'm gonna guess some kind of operational security failure.
They got him on Reddit, dude. They found him. They tracked him through his Reddit account. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's you see these kind of slip ups happen time and again. I mean that's how they got oh gosh, what was his name? Altoid Dread Pirate Roberts. The Silk Road dude. Anyway, reusing account names that you have associated with other identities. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I wish he had gone about it in a different sense. I think there could have been a happy ending that could have come out of this. Instead, the dude's probably going to be going to federal prison.
Yeah,
so.
and MLB's claiming, or these companies are saying, hey, we lost about $3 million in revenue because this guy was illegally streaming our sports games. So again, fascinating stuff. Another story that hit the news recently is the largest botnet ever. Do you want to take a gamble or guess, folks, on how many millions of devices were infected? $1.6 million. That's how many. 1.6 million devices, right? The largest
money
botnet.
on the mind.
Yeah,
money on the mind.
The money is on the mind. The largest botnet ever seen. 1.6 million devices. This pink botnet. It's primarily attacking China. Is that right?
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting about this is it's like you said, primarily targeting Chinese devices. It's only focused on MIPS architecture. So it's infecting these fiber routers. So these pieces of critical network infrastructure that puts them in a very privileged position as far as the amount of bandwidth that they have access to and just the sheer number of devices. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you think about, folks, these botnets being able to target fiber routers, and they're not just leveraging this robust architecture, but they're also looking at third-party services, P2P, command and control servers. The architecture is very resilient to takedowns by law enforcement. That's what makes this so dangerous, and we hope that we don't have to see it here in the United States. But fascinating stuff, this pink botnet. All right, and then kind of our last story that we're going to wrap up the show with today is about these password spray attacks. And the Microsoft Dart team, which is their detection and response team, they said that there's been an uptick in the use of password spray attacks. I know that on behalf of our clients, we see a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, and this is different from just like your run-of-the-mill brute force. This is more leveraging credentials that have been found in other breaches. So they've found, some username password combination from some other site that got popped. They're going to turn around and try that same thing on any other services that they can. So it's definitely a lot different from just, okay, I'm going for this account. Okay, is it 123? No. 1234? No. It's very a lot more targeted in that sense.
Yeah, and that's the key takeaway here. Lesson learned is you don't want to be using the same login and password across all your devices. And especially right now, they're targeting a lot of these privileged cloud accounts. So if you're using the same login and password for multiple devices, multiple apps, that's where you're going to get popped. So again, be aware of it. It's a growing trend. All right, so that's our show. What do you think, Forrest? How do you think it went?
Pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. I hope you guys had a good time here with Mrs. T's Heiferogies and what I call you, the Grand Order of the British Empire. I don't know, whatever it was.
The sun never sets.
Yeah, the sun never sets. Hey, please smash the like button for us, and if you have comments, share. We love that kind of stuff too. If you want to subscribe, we love subscribers. That helps us show that we're valued and that you appreciate what we do. Thanks for joining us, folks. Have a great week.
Take care.